Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Hold on to the edge of your seats because you are in for quite the ride. It's time for the Granada Forum Radio Show. Right now, live on air with your host, Granada, Wendy.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Granada Forum Radio program. And today is the first Friday, which is the 5th of October. Oh, my God, October's going fast already. 5th of October, and we're going to do tonight, we're going to do kind of a round table, discuss many issues that are going on, so no problem. Next week, though, we do have that wonderful man, his name is Lance. They'll come out talk about the Great America Quakeout next week from 8 to 9. So we're very happy to have him back, and we always do that because it's a public service as well, and very happy to have the earthquake people, the Great America Quakeout people. So that'll be next week. But tonight we're doing a round table. I'd like to thank my wonderful co-host, Mr. Nick Pearson.
Hey, hey.
And my wonderful producer, who we cannot live without, we respect and love, Mr. Richard Kane.
Hi there.
Thank you. There you go. And we want to say hello to Red in the chat room, who might be there listening. Thank you, Red, for everything you do, and we love you. By the way, this is Revolution Radio. We are the #1 commercial-free, listener-supported internet talk radio station in the world. We are located at Freedom Slips, that's SLIPS.com, freedomslips.com, or go to revolution.radio, that's revolution.radio. Okay, and we are working for a call-in number. If we could ever get that worked out somehow, we'll try to figure something out. Maybe the software will get better, and that will be worked out as well. So we appreciate, if you know, check the chat room at Revolution Radio and get on and give us some help. There you go. There's a good way of doing it. Okay, let's see. Real quickly, do some announcements. We do want to thank the 46th Annual Cancer Control Society for helping us September. That was great Liberty Weekend. We can't say enough. If you go to www.cancercontrolsociety.com, that's www.cancercontrolsociety.com. Their phone number is 323-663-7801. That's 663-7801, 323 area code. And that is, again, www.cancercontrolsociety.com.
Right. And if you want to if you want to hear a replay of that show, you can go up on our YouTube channel. I just posted that one up as a YouTube video, or you can go to our Granada Forum Facebook group and listen to it there also.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. Good, because a lot of good people talked that night. It was actually very, very good. By the way, also too, we will be at the Natural Health Solutions Expo on the 15th and 16th of December, and we will be live on the 14th, and that's 2018, and that's going to be at the LAX Marriott at 5855 West Century Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90045. The phone number to talk to Melissa is 562-212-3479. That's 562-212-3479. Or go to www.healthysolutionsexpo.com. That's www.healthysolutionsexpo.com. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be in December. Okay, just for kicks, you want to give a few websites out, Nick, and then we'll do a few and then get into some stuff?
No, let's kick it off. Let's go.
Though I did hear a pretty good website last night. We checked it out, me and Cousin Bob. By the way, I want to say it was Cousin Bob's birthday this week, so happy birthday, Cousin Bob. There you go. Called from a buddy of mine who gave me a tip. It's called Space Shot. That's spaceshot.com. He goes through Q's stuff, and he's very, very good at it. There's a couple of people that do that, but he's one of the guys that also does it. And he's got a pretty good site, and he's understandable. He doesn't go real fast, so it's called Space, S-P-A-C-E, Shot, S-H-O-T, Space Shot. I might got that wrong if Bob's listening, but spaceshot.com, and that was kind of cool. All right, so as you know, it's been a crazy week. I do believe, if you can believe this, I was running errands, believe it or not, Nick, today, so I was out and about. Trust me. Paid a bill and had to go do errands. So sometimes that happens on me on Friday, and I turned on 1070, and the senator from, I believe it's from Maine, and she was talking, and then, but I had to go do something, so I had to get out of the car, and I came back, she was still on, and that was like at least, like, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then she was still on after like 30 minutes, and I guess she was giving a speech, so, but I guess in the end, they're going to, tomorrow, is it tomorrow, Nick, that the senators or the people to vote on the Supreme Court.
You're talking about Susan Collins.
Susan Collins, yeah, she's the senator from Maine. I didn't know. I knew she was from Maine, but I wasn't sure on the name. But I knew she was from Maine. So, but she's a U.S. senator.
I remember her and Lisa Murkowski out of Alaska, mostly because they are a couple of the biggest rhinos in the Senate right now, next to John McCain. But John McCain is now thankfully planted, so we don't have to worry about him anymore. But she was one of those iffy votes that nobody knew which way she was going to go on it. So she finally came out today and said she was going to vote yes.
Well, she gave like a 45-minute speech or an hour speech before I guess she said something, and that was the deal.
Oh yeah, she's typical politician, man. They love to hear themselves talk. Boy, I swear to God. It's like, how much air pressure do you have in that tire? An hour later, they'll still be talking and never give you an answer.
But she did, I guess, say she's going to vote for him. So tomorrow, I take it tomorrow. Is it tomorrow they're going to vote in the Supreme Court Justice? Is that correct? Yeah, they're having the confirmation vote tomorrow.
Confirmation vote tomorrow. Guaranteed every single Democrat is going to vote no. Jeff Flake out of Arizona said he's going to vote yes, even though he's half of the problems that we had to endure another week for. I wouldn't even say half. I'd say he's the whole problem. Yeah,
once he did that, I agree. That kind of just,
And now Susan Collins said she's going to vote yes on it. Murkowski's probably going to vote no. It could come down to just simply a split vote, in which case Pence is going to get in there and vote, because he's got to be the tiebreaker being president of the Senate. So he's going to get confirmed. It's not he's not going to win in a landslide or anything, but he's going to get confirmed, and all the Democrats are going to start complaining. I mean, they were complaining this on Wednesday when the FBI came out with its report, and they had to review it behind closed doors. They haven't released it to the public yet, as far as I know. And the first thing they did was Feinstein and Schumer got up there and started complaining about how they didn't have enough time to do a proper investigation into Kavanaugh, and we need more time and all this stuff. It's like, no, the only thing that you guys are complaining about is the fact that, number one, the report didn't say what you wanted it to, so now you're whining about it.
And haven't they been investigating him for the last 6 months?
Maybe
I'm wrong on the number 4 or 5, but it's 4 or 5 months at least. I mean,
well, as soon as he got nominated, the FBI does a background check, and I think they've done several of them. But the liberals were not happy with it, and they were trying to push this past the midterm so that Kavanaugh could not sit on the bench, and hopefully they were. I think it was just payback because of when Obama's last term, in the very last days of his presidency, Republicans blocked the confirmation of one of Obama's picks, and thank God that they did.
Thank God they did.
But so they're looking for payback. I mean, they are some of the most spiteful people I've ever met in my life, and that includes the Republicans that fall into the Democrat Party also.
Yeah.
But they're looking for payback. They're looking to do anything that they can to derail Donald Trump and what he's been doing. And quite frankly, I'm still 50-50 on the guy. I think he's doing great on the economy. I think he's doing great with the trade agreements. That new one that we got rid of, NAFTA, finally.
Oh God, that was absolutely. So I remember when NAFTA came out. Was it 20 years ago or 15 years ago? And it was just. I know that I was screaming about it, saying this is horrible. No, and the American people, Nick, did not want this. This was rammed. That GATT thing was rammed down their throats, whether they liked it or not.
Well, the Obama
and the damage it did.
Yeah, the Obama administration absolutely did not really care about the American people. They just cared about maintaining power and staying in control and pushing this far left-wing agenda. Bill Clinton did the same thing. And if you really want to dig into it, George Bush Jr. did the same thing, and so did his dad. We haven't had a real decent president for a long time.
I don't think since John F. Kennedy. I'm going to be honest with you. I just don't. I mean, people could say Reagan was okay. There's pros and cons on that, but yeah, I mean, it's been a long time, Nick.
Yeah, it's been for forever. And Kennedy, even though he wasn't...
Not that Kennedy was perfect, and I'm not saying Kennedy was perfect, but
oh, no, not by a long shot.
I'm being honest.
Not by a long shot, but, the fact that he stood up to the banking system, he stood up to the cabal that is the deep state government back in the 1960s, and they took him out for it. You got to give the guy a little bit of credit when he became president, and they took him around and said, hey, this is how things really work. And he did a 180 on them and said, oh, hell no. No, this is not how it's supposed to work.
And I think in a lot of ways, that's where Donald Trump also said, like we talked just before the show, I might be many things. I might be a, son of a gun, but I'm not a monster. And I'm not into the murder, the rape, and the mayhem 24/7 like you cabal and New World Order guys. And it's just,
Well, but then you gotta fault Trump for this. His foreign policy, especially when it comes to the Middle East, is pretty abysmal. We're still over there. We're still over there fighting for everybody else. For what reason? Spending trillions of dollars, blowing stuff up and blowing up people again. And it's kind of like, we've been over there for 16, 17 years now. It's time to stop the stupidity.
I think he's been under the gun a lot. I mean, he's been hammered since the day it even let up. But, listen, Nick, I went to the gas station, I think about 15 days ago. I've been there before, but just listen. About 15 days, 2 weeks ago, I was paying about $3.37 a gallon. Okay. Today, I paid. I put gas in my car, and it was $3.63. Now, a couple of days ago was like $2.59. So it even went up a couple of pennies, like from a day or two ago.
Right.
Now, Nick, why do we have an oil shortage when there is no shortage of oil in America or even around the world?
No.
And then they always mention the refineries, but it's a laugh.
Yeah, we've been through this on shows before. Oil is not running out.
No, oil is not running out.
I remember when I was a kid and during the 1970s, and all these commercials would come on the TV. And
the Standard Oil with the dinosaurs, I loved it. That was a favorite. I always thought
it was all these like environmentalist left-wing commercials, and they're saying there's not going to be any gas by the time I get by the time I come an adult. It's like, yeah, well, guess what? It doesn't seem like we got a hell of a shortage yet. That's one of those things that we've been through before. It's renewable. It bleeds oil. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
But gas here has gone up. I was looking at a report in Los Angeles. There's a place in Hollywood. The gas is over $4 a gallon now. And here I am thinking I'm paying too much because it's $3, a little over $3 a gallon here.
Now, Nick, what were you paying? What, maybe $2.40, $2.30 a gallon?
When I came back to California last time, I was paying at the local gas station down the street here. I was paying just a little bit over $3 a gallon on the freeway coming into California. The gas prices were they varied somewhere between $2.50 and $2.75 or a gallon. Somewhere in there. Around that price. As soon as I hit California, it was over $3 a gallon again.
Right.
So, it varies from place to place. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the gas stations along the 80 and all the other freeways I took cut it down a little bit because they do a lot more volume.
I gotcha.
But
and I thought, I'm going to tell you something, Nick. You listen to me, okay? I mean, I I have a few little, you go to Trader Joe's, you go to the bank, you go to a couple little places, but you're not necessarily traveling like, tremendous miles of distance. Okay, you stay within, like I'd say, like a 5 to 7, 8 mile radius. Just listen to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even just say 10 maybe. Okay, but when the gas is $3.60, almost $4 a gallon. Let me tell you something, Nick. You're going to see a lot of people home because let me tell you, I don't care. I mean, unless you really have that type of money to spend, I'm being honest with you, Nick, because you can't be out going places because where are you getting the money for the gasoline?
Well, yeah. And matter of fact, when I was in California last time, my girlfriend there, she drives a Ford Expedition. Okay, that thing gets maybe 8 to 10 miles per gallon. And she has her business only a few miles away from where she lives, and she was still putting about $100 a week in the tank.
Oh my God!
So we went out on a limb and got her a high mileage car. Right. And that way she doesn't have to spend so much money on gas. Unfortunately, the payments are eating it up anyway, but that's beside the point. At least this way she's not wasting money on gasoline. And I have no problem with electric cars. I got no problem with high mileage car hybrids, whatever. But man, do they have to make them look so damn ugly? I mean, God, my God. Design them so they look at, and design them so that they look good and they don't cost $50,000 for a base model car.
I think that's part of the postmodernism type thing to make everything look ugly. The grayness, the filthiness, everything's like gross. Yeah. Now, even the vehicles, same thing, to make everybody depressed. Again, it's all part of this, Agenda 2030 would be my guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was really funny. I was watching. I don't know if you ever know who this guy is. Is Jeff Dunham?
Jeff Dunham. How come the name sounds familiar? You mentioned him before.
He does a ventriloquist act.
Oh, okay. He's a comedian.
Oh yeah, he does Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, and he does Walter the old cranky guy, and his most famous one is whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. Right. But he did this routine where he's talking about his wife's car, which is a powder blue Prius.
Okay. Powder blue Prius.
And he had to drive that car home one day, and he said he felt so embarrassed. And he was working one of his puppets, and he goes, "You know what a powder blue Prius sounds like when you drive by? I'm gay." You sit at the stoplight and you can listen to the thing idle. Homo, 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 homo.
Oh my God!
I was cracking. I almost fell over. I thought that was funny as hell.
Oh my God, that's unreal. Also, too, Nick, can I ask you a question? Besides the diesels, I know the diesels. Like, I got a friend that has a diesel, and he puts like canola oil. He tells you this like a 50-50. He can put like canola oil in it, and do like a bottle, like a 1 bottle of canola oil.
You can
maybe put 30. Listen to me, 32 ounces, and he can go for so many miles. But he told me he does like a mixture of like a bottle of canola oil or something, and diesel. Now, supposedly, Nick, they want to get rid of all the diesels. Just that's one of the things that's part of the Agenda 2030, as you know. And I did talk to Deborah Tavares, and she mentioned they want cars off the freaking road. But but the thing about this is, Nick, now if my car takes, I mean, I've got like a Kia something, a Sedona or something, I don't know. It runs on regular gasoline. But let me ask you, Nick, because now before the gasoline came in, as I've mentioned this a few times, that when all the cars first started running, they ran on alcohol.
Grease. They ran on alcohol. And some of them the diesels originally were supposed to run on grease.
Okay.
They weren't even supposed to run on diesel fuel.
Right, right. So the thing about this is, the cars, like the regular cars that take gasoline, what kind of conversion? And this is kind of interesting. Maybe we're going to need to get somebody on to talk about this. What kind of conversion, just for your regular car that takes just regular gasoline? What kind of conversion do you need so that the car can run on alcohol, or the car could run on cooking oil or something?
Well,
is what I'm trying to say.
A regular car won't run on like grease and cooking oil and all of that.
Okay, does there have to be a type of conversion?
There's a thing that you got to do. I remember Daryl Hannah. I ran across.
That's correct.
Yeah, good actress.
Yeah,
I ran across her one time at some award show that I was working on, and her car actually runs on used grease from fast food restaurants and donut places. They're more than happy to sell it to you, believe me. Because they don't want to have to pay the cost to have the stuff removed, which they do now.
Yeah.
You have to strain out the grease to get all the little bits and pieces out of it. I think if you live in a colder climate, you got to make sure that your fuel tank is heated so it'll liquefy the stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Right. I understand.
And I'm not sure what you have to do on the engine itself to convert it over, but you can run it on that stuff. Right,
right. So the thing about this is now, and this is what I'm saying, because I think I heard her. Now I've never met her, but she was on Art Bell. I mean, not Art Bell. She was on George and Ori one night, and she said she has a truck and a Trans Am, and they both ran on. So she, you know what? They both ran on some type of, like, I hate to say that, but something. So other than gasoline. So the thing about this is alternative thing, from the donut shops and the fast food.
Yeah, the cooking oil that they use.
The cooking oil. But I'm just saying, maybe we should look into somebody that knows about conversion, because I know this sounds weird, but what are you talking a bottle of canola oil at the store is? What? Even if it's organic, $3.50, $4?
Yeah, it's like $3 for like one of those big bottles. I think it's like maybe a liter and a half or something. It's like $3.50 or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a little more expensive than gas, though. So.
But if you only needed one of those to go, 100 miles, I mean, and you only had to put $4 in your car.
Right. Well, this is why I remember not just her, but a few other people said they would go around to like the donut places. Every place that cooks with grease, they have to dump out the used grease, and it goes into a big drum out in the back, and they have to pay somebody to haul it away and get rid of it. So they'll go around to those places and say, I'll give you X amount of dollars for this much of your oil. And they'll be like, yeah, no problem. Because they're making money, and they don't have to pay to have their grease hauled away right away. Right. And all they got to do is clean it out and, like I said, clean the chunks and stuff out of it that's left over from the cooking processes.
Sure. Yeah.
And dump it in their tank.
Right. So I think the thing about this is, Nick, if they start making the gasoline so expensive, and I'm not just talking here in California, which is outrageous. And by the way, we are going to have a show on. Oh God, I blew that one. I can talk to another thing. We're all having a show on the night. It's like I blew that one. I saw one paper. We're having a show on the 19th, right? With David to talk about some of the propositions and different things that are going on in California.
Yeah, our friend David Hernandez,
Our friend David Hernandez, that's correct.
Who is very active in politics in California.
Right, all right. And but I believe one of the ballots is they want to raise again, or they want to take off the gas tax. And
they want to repeal the gas tax, and
right.
Of course, Jerry Brown and all his cronies are coming out against doing that. And
right.
Of course, Gavin Newsom, who's going to be the new governor of California, he's against it, and so are a few other people. But it's kind of like, well, why would you be against something like that? Well, because then they won't have the money to hand out all those entitlements to everybody and make sure they can keep buying votes the way that they do by, again, handing out so-called free stuff to everybody. Well, what about the homeless people? I'll say, well, what about them? If you guys hadn't screwed the economy up so bad, you wouldn't have such a massive homeless problem. Part of the problem is that homes in California are too damn expensive.
Well, honey, face it, I'm native in Southern California,
Yep.
and Nick, the average person doesn't live in California because you can't afford it. It's just way too expensive.
You can't.
People truly do not understand. California is just outrageous. It's so expensive. You can't live here.
I know. I keep going back there, and it's the difference in the cost of living is absolutely mind-boggling compared to where I live now. Now, granted, I made a very drastic move when I left, but again, the house that I bought. Okay, I paid cash for it. Because when I sold a condominium in California, I had enough money to buy a house. Okay, and now when you think of a house in California, you look at some of the price ranges. Most people are they're gonna buy a very modest house. It's gonna be like a ranch style. 1 story, maybe a couple of bedrooms, a master bath, and living room, kitchen, maybe a garage, maybe not. You're still going to pay well over $400,000 for the house. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I came here where I live now. Okay. I have a house that was built, in the 1930s, I think. Okay. It's 2 stories. It's 4 bedrooms, an attached garage, a third of an acre of property, a basement and an attic to store stuff in. I paid 10% of what a house would cost in California. A house like this in California, with the way the property prices are in San Fernando Valley and over the hill in Los Angeles itself, this house would be worth well over $1 million. Okay, there's no way that I would ever be able to afford a house in California.
No.
That's how ridiculous it is there.
I agree.
You got nice weather and you got the beach. And, you got the mountains on the other side, so you can go skiing one day and go swimming the next day, or,
that's correct.
And whatever. And there's always something interesting that's always happening there. But the flip side of that is you got super high taxes. You got, a communist agenda pushing its way through California.
Oh, God,
you got politicians that don't care, about anything that are. So, what's the trade-off? And, it finally became, for me anyway, the trade-off wasn't worth it anymore.
Right. California's hurting, and I can't wait to have David on the 19th, because we really need to talk about some of the propositions in California, what's really going on and behind the scenes. So that's going to be a great show, and
we're having
fun there.
We're having a time here because our governor is being challenged by
in Wisconsin.
Scott Walker. He's being challenged by this guy named Tony Evers, who is a flat out socialist / communist. He wants to undo everything that Scott Walker did.
Well, I think Scott Walker has to give the guy credit, because Walker, at least, and I do know about this in Wisconsin, that, face it, Nick, just before you moved, he got the people of Wisconsin going again. He got some industry going.
Oh, yeah.
He got people working. Unemployment has been cut in Wisconsin. I think he's got the state moving in the right direction. I have to admit that.
He did a lot of good stuff. I actually met him, and I got a chance to talk with him at one of his local appearances that he made, local stop that he made not too far from here. And, he made the state really worth it. Tammy Baldwin, who's the Democrat senator, she's being challenged by this woman, Leah Vukmir, who is absolutely just great. Her record, her voting record in the state assembly is, or state senate or whatever she is is really, really good. But this guy Evers that's coming in, he is flat out bought and paid for by the unions. And I was talking to my cousin. I'm like, I didn't move 2,000 miles away just to get another communist governor. Okay, right. that would drive me absolutely over the cliff if that happened.
Right.
So, I don't want to go from Jerry Brown to some other communist asswipe who's going to run the state into the ground to push an agenda and just so he can get paid off,
Right. Yeah. Hey, Nick, it's just 7:31, but do you have? Is there like some of the I know that you've been doing research on documents on Agenda 21 and 31, Agenda 2030. Is there a few websites so people could go and look at some of this information, Nick?
All you got to do is do a Google search.
Okay, cool.
That's all. That's all I did was it was one of these things. What it reminded me of when I was going through all these different documents that I was reading from all these global meetings that I was having. It was like when I first got into doing the research on what was really going on in the world. It was like one of those things where you think it's just going to be, I'm going to read this and then maybe I'll read that and move on and go on to a linear thing. And it doesn't work that way. Okay, you start reading something and you're going to start having to look at all these different things as you're reading, just so you understand what it is that you're reading and what they're talking about in the papers. And that's what happened. And I right now have got like more than a dozen different documents that I ran across that I'm still in the process of reading them all. And the latest one, because these globalist meetings started years ago. Agenda 21 was probably one of the really first real big ones where they actually laid out a plan. They probably go back further than that, but that was one of the bigger ones. But every so many years they'll have another meeting and they'll lay out their plans for the future, and then they'll have another one some years later and they'll make adjustments as they see necessary. And it's all written. You can read every one of them. And Agenda 21, which came out in 2015, reads like a playbook for everything that's happening now. You might as well go get Bill Belichick and read his playbook and watch the Patriots do their thing on the field, and you can see what they're doing because you got the papers in front of you. You pick up the Agenda 21 document and you read that, and it's like watching everything that's happening. It's right there in that paper. It doesn't say, we're going to get a group together called Antifa and we're going to go out there and start a riot. No, they're a little more subtle than that, but it's a playbook for everything that you're watching now. The entire Kavanaugh hearing, with all these feminists running around screaming with their signs and marching, and some of them I actually believe they really think that way and they think they're doing a good job, right out of that playbook. That everything that you're seeing with all that Me Too movement, the feminist movement, all the crap that you're seeing in Hollywood trying to take old classic movies and switch everything around and it to be more politically correct. It's in there if you know what you're reading. And it's absolutely ridiculous. This is a huge globalist plan to just disrupt everything that really made America great to begin with. And this is what I thought, when I heard Donald Trump come out and he had that slogan, "Make America Great Again." I was like, yeah, okay, that's catchy, it's nice and everything, and I understand what he's talking.
I think it was just simple and catchy. I think that's why everyone liked it, because it wasn't real fancy. It was just directly into the point. It was simple and direct to the point.
But the thing is when you start reading these documents, that little catchphrase, "Make America Great Again," really means something. It really jumps out at you because it's like, yeah, we were, but look at what their globalists are doing to us.
Right.
They are shredding this entire country to pieces. When you have an entire party in the Senate, in Congress, in the House, both the House and the Senate, who are screaming that they do not want due process. They don't come right out and say it, but that's exactly that's what they're screaming for. They want to get rid of the Fourth Amendment. the due process. I think that's the Fifth Amendment, actually. But they don't want due process because they just want to push their agenda forward. You got to sit back for a minute and go, hey, what is going on with our Congress right now?
Right. Yeah. Right.
You know, they don't want. And quite frankly, if you actually read through all the Bill of Rights, all the way to the 10th Amendment, every single one of them has been violated by our government at this point. They don't follow the Constitution.
Well, I believe that one of the things when this was in the 90s, when they were trying to pass the NAFTA and GATT, one of the major things that we all said, NAFTA just kills the Constitution, kills the Bill of Rights, and it's harmful to America. And I said something too. I said, the senators and the congressmen who are passing NAFTA and GATT, this was in the 90s. I said maybe they'll be in term a couple of offices or 10 years, but they don't realize the harm and the responsibility that they've done to the country. And these people have done major harm to the country when they passed the NAFTA and GATT. And let me tell you something, Nick. It was totally to hurt America, and that's the God's truth. And NAFTA and GATT has hurt America. It hasn't made it better. It hurt it. And it wasn't about whether you were Democrat or black or what color, if you're a man or a woman. You got hurt because of NAFTA and GATT because you didn't even have a job. Right. You didn't even have opportunity. Well,
NAFTA and GATT were kind of like a precursor to turning North America into
a third world country.
Well, into the European Union.
Right.
See, this is one of the things that I learned this a long time ago when I was reading about how they were trying to the globalist bankers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all the ones at the very top of the list. They are trying to carve the world up into sections and integrate them as time goes on. And believe it or not, if you read, and got to be one of my favorite books of all time, and one of my favorite movies, which was the old one with Peter Cushing in it, 1984. Okay, there weren't a bunch of separate individual countries like we have now. There were 3. Okay, and that's kind of what they're doing with this, but they're doing it on a financial system. Look at the entire European Union wasn't designed around trying to create a one big country out of Europe. It was designed around a financial system, around a banking system, around a currency system. That's what they were doing with NAFTA and GATT with the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And do you remember how all those years ago when they were starting to consider the North American currency called the Amero?
Oh yeah, people went. Yeah, there was major fights on that one, Nick.
Right,
major fights on that.
They were trying to turn North America into a financial district, ungoverned. Well, not so much ungoverned, but governed by unelected officials. Who happen to be the bankers. The banking system.
Right.
I don't really hate to say it. I was going to say I hate to say it, but it's like I don't hate to say it, but I love saying this to people because it blows their mind because they really think banking institutions are like some of the best things that happen. Banking and bankers and the IMF and the World Bank and all that, they are some of the most evil people on this planet.
Yeah.
They are absolutely have caused are the cause still of every single piece of crap that goes on. Every war that we're fighting now is a bank war. Yeah. There's a brilliant document out there, or a brilliant YouTube video out there called "All Wars Are Banker Wars," and they are. Smedley Butler years ago, when he came out with "War is a Racket," explained it, and he said, I was out there fighting, thinking I was, convincing myself I was there fighting for America and to uphold the Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And after he left the military, it was like, no, I realized I was fighting for United Fruit Company or the steel company over here or whatever. And, of course, they tried to recruit him to lead a coup against the United States government. And that's when he came out and made that brilliant speech on a newsreel saying, hey, look, there's people out there trying to overthrow the United States government. Well, they already did it back in 1933. 1913 was probably the first domino.
Well, it was definitely the first. 1913 was definitely the first shot across the bow.
I don't even think it was across the bow, but it was straight into the heart of America.
Yeah, it was.
They ran us into debt. I mean, this is the one thing that Andrew Jackson, the reason he got rid of the Second National Bank was because he saw that it was starting to bankrupt America. We were going way into debt. Right. So he paid off the national debt, refused to sign the extension for another 20 years for the Second National Bank. They tried to kill him, but the pistols misfired. Woodrow Wilson comes along. He's a bank puppet being handled by Edward Mandell House. Signs into the banking laws and watch the country just start, the national debt start increasing. And now we're, on paper, we're at $21 trillion in change in debt. It's probably a hell of a lot more. And it's like, how do we, in Congress, and what do? They keep signing these ridiculous goddamn spending bills that are $1.3 trillion or more. It's at what point are you guys going to stop spending the damn money?
Well, listen to me, Nick. Under the Obama administration, Obama gave the banks $29 trillion and made the people responsible for it. And I don't think half of America truly understands that. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. If you gave $29 trillion to the bankers, and what do you think your little happiness or your little piece of the pie is going to come from? Because you're not going to get it. You don't have a chance.
Yeah, no kidding. And here's one of the kicker parts too. Back in 2008, when the economy crashed, because of all those,
and none of the bankers went to jail. This is something that people need to understand.
Not. No, of course not. And if you watch this movie called, was it called The Big Short?
Yeah, that's a good one. It
really was.
And there's another movie, The Big Short, is very good. Absolutely, Nick. The Big Short's great, and The Big Short is great. And another one called Crash. I think it's called The Crash.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one too. Yeah.
Right. Well, go ahead, Nick. It really does. It really kind of gives you like a very like a Cliff Notes version of what happened during the banking crisis back in 2007, 2008.
Right.
And the ridiculous part that I just found this absolutely mind-boggling that anybody bought into it. During the last governor's race, while I was
still
in California, when Tim Donnelly was running for governor,
right? Yes. Right.
The California Republican Party backed Neil Kashkari. Right. The guy who engineered $700 billion in bailouts for the banks.
Right.
And it's like you got to be. Oh, and he got his rewards too. He's now president of the Missouri Federal Reserve. Is the last time I heard about him.
Right. So, and you have to. And another thing too, Nick. People don't realize something. The first bailout wasn't even though they said it on paper and said it was for the 780. The first bailout turned out to be for $5 trillion. This is something that the American people truly don't understand. Because when Obama then becomes president, he gives the globalists and the bankers get $8 trillion. So 8 and 5 is 13, and then he does 5 more QETs, and it's $29 trillion. So, and you can, if you don't, the people who are listening out in America or even in the world, if you just probably even do a Google search and look for deficit of 2008, you'll see that I'm not lying, because it literally comes up on various websites about the $29 trillion, and it's not something that I can just pull that out of my keister. That's just fact. So you're talking tremendous amounts of money, and Nick, listen to me. If you gave every American, and I mean every American who was like 18 and above, if you even gave them $250,000, which is $250,000, even if you gave them $1 million, it would never add up to the money, Nick, that these people got. This is what people truly don't understand. And when you see the left going, "Oh, we're for the poor, we're for the homeless," I'm like, "What about the 29 trillion?" No one ever says a word to me, Nick, and it's beyond words. It's like it's almost it's beyond stupidity.
Well, everybody, when that whole crisis happened, everybody blamed George Bush because it happened on his watch. It's like, no, you got to go back a little bit further than that.
Right.
Bill Clinton is the one who signed the repeal of Glass-Steagall.
That's right.
And you go back a little bit further than that, and you go to Jimmy Carter's administration, and it was the what was the name of that bill? It was like the Reconstruction or the neighborhood something that basically piled money into communities.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that one, so you got me on that one, Nick.
Yeah, I forget what the name of the bill is off the top of my head, but that was what gave him, Bill Clinton, the authority to repeal Glass-Steagall. And then came in what the banks and bankers are always going to do, and they always, what Ron Paul called the moral hazard, where they don't care about playing with the money because it ain't their money.
Right,
and they got their bailout, but what a lot of people don't realize is that bailout was actually written into the Federal Reserve Act back in 1913.
Right.
So the banks don't care. They're not going to go bankrupt.
No, and that's why they put it on the American people. And the American people don't understand this physically, mentally, or spiritually, Nick. They truly don't understand this.
Yeah, and the thing that bothered me a lot is when Ron Paul finally got even just the watered down version of his audit the Fed bill passed, and they did the watered down audit of the Federal Reserve. Even then, they found out that bank was making loans to countries overseas. Exactly. That there was no way that they were going to be able to pay it back, but they were making them the loans anyway. Right. But because it's the Federal Reserve, if that country defaults, guess who's on the hook to pay it back? The American taxpayers.
Right. And this, again, Nick, this is about where the American people do not understand the Federal Reserve. And as you know, Nick, the Federal Reserve is owned by foreign banks in foreign countries. It's not part of America.
Oh, yeah.
And that the IRS is a collection agency for the Federal Reserve. And so all the money that you pay in your taxes, and listen, you pay in your federal taxes, not a nickel, not a dime goes to the national debt. It goes to the Federal Reserve and the 12 families that own the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is a private banking. It's not part of America. And for every dollar that the Federal Reserve prints, they charge $2. So you can never pay off the national debt.
Right. Yeah, it's all even during Ronald Reagan's tenure as president, they found out that all the money that's being collected in taxes is going to pay off the interest. It's not even going to pay off the principal. And anybody who has ever had a car loan or a mortgage payment you're paying off interest. And if you never pay the principal, you're still going to be paying all that interest, and it's just going to keep going up.
Right.
Because they're spending money. But this is the thing that I really believe that these morons in Congress were educated in Keynesian economics, because they can never figure out how to not spend money, because we can always keep borrowing. And it's like, well, no, you can't. Why do you think the Soviet Union collapsed?
Right.
They borrowed themselves. We were in the entire Cold War was a big economic war between us and the Soviet Union.
Right.
And the Soviet Union just, because they did everything centralized through the government, all the farming, all the manufacturing, whatever needed to be done was all planned by government. And of course that never works. Nobody's going to become innovative if you got to give up all your profits, or a vast majority of them to the government. And they just simply buckled under. There's no way that they could, pay off the debts that they owed. So of course their entire economy imploded, and of course then their government imploded. And this is why one of the things that I actually like about Putin, I'm not like the guy's champion. I'm not going to go out there and cheer for him or anything like that. But he refuses, I think right now, to get a Rothschild-controlled central bank in Russia ever again, because he saw what happened. I don't know if they have one. I don't know if they have one now, but I remember that was one of the big points of contention with the guy was he refused to get a central bank into Russia. Right. I mean, they may have one now, and if they did, it's just going to drive the country into ruin again. So, I could never understand why, and that's what I thought was brilliant about North Dakota.
Right.
Because North Dakota has their own state bank that they actually work through.
In North Dakota or South Dakota, they don't have it's their own bank in the Dakota. It's not part of the Federal Reserve.
Right. And they do technically every bank in America is part of the Federal Reserve, whether they want to be or not, because the Federal Reserve has tentacles out, and they will bury. I mean, they did it for a long time. Early in the 20th century, there were a lot of independent banks out there that were doing business, and they ended up getting buried by the big national banks. And pretty soon, the number of different banks started collapsing down to almost. I think there's 5 different kinds of major banks anymore, not counting credit unions or anything like that.
Right.
But here's a story though that I actually thought was really, really funny. And it had to do with, I think it was my great-grandfather. He had been banking at the local bank down, whatever was in town, and the guy who ran the bank just closed it up and took everybody's money.
Oh, God.
A short time later, he opened up another bank, not too far from where the other one was, and my great-grandfather goes down there, and he takes out a loan for the exact amount of money that was in his account before.
Uh-huh.
Never paid it back. Never paid back a dime of it. The guy who ran the bank came over to his house to try to get some money out of him. My great-grandfather met him at his property line with a shotgun. Can you imagine being able to get away with that today?
Yeah, right. Well, and people, and Nick, when I wanted to say something too, because that's a great story about your grandfather. When the Federal Reserve came in 1933, you must understand something.
1930.
The IRS came in.
Yeah, that was 1913, not 33.
No, it took. No, it was passed in 1913, but it took from 1913 to 1933 to put in.
Right.
But in 1933,
to put us into.
But in 1933. You got the Federal Reserve, you got income tax, you got the IRS, and you had Social Security, and all these came in 1933.
Oh yeah, under
the Fed,
under FDR.
Yeah, so this all came in, and so you're talking big. How do you say this? Big conglomerates of convoluted socialism, private banking, swindling, I mean, you name it.
Yeah, it was all a very big socialist agenda. I mean, Woodrow Wilson, who signed the Fed Reserve Act, he was in the pocket of the bankers. He was a very controlled guy. And even on his deathbed, he was upset because he said, "I unwittingly ruined my country." But at that, and of course they instituted the 16th Amendment, even though it was never properly ratified. They just said it was.
Right.
I mean, there's a great book out there called "The Law That Never Was," it basically explains how come the 16th Amendment was never properly ratified, but they pushed it through anyway because they had to have that income tax in order to be able to pay back the banks. So you had that. You had the Federal Reserve Act come in, so we got another central bank. They drove us the entire country in a very short period of time, 20 years. It only took 20 years. I mean, we had to borrow money to pay for World War I, and we started going downhill from there. In 1933, we went into bankruptcy. We were all sold into as collateral in the debt. This is why you got a Social Security number now, which, by the way, if you research if you research your Social Security number, you'll find out that your Social Security number is being traded
on the U.S. stock market. Yeah, and that's correct. Your Social Security is traded on the U.S. stock market as a commodity.
Right, and there is a way to take it back. You can get your Social Security number back and get rid of your straw man. I've read a lot of paperwork about it. A friend of mine did. Unfortunately, the documents that I had got lost when my emails completely crashed years ago. So when I get back to California, I'm going to have to ask my friend and if they can give them to me again. And I'm just kind of like, I don't want to, I'm going to kind up there and just kind of be like all sheepish about it. It's like, can you give me those things again? Because, I lost them all. I didn't download them off my email and save them when I should have.
There you go. We'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere. We'll get John on for a few minutes, talk about some other subject matters, and we'll be right back. And the Granada Forum radio program with Nick and Rich and everybody. So hold on. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, welcome back to the Granada Forum radio program. I was waiting for the music with Nick Pearson and myself and my producer, Richard Kane. And our listeners, thank you so much. If you got any questions or anything interesting in the chat room before we might bring John on for a minute, Nick, anything interesting in the chat room?
No, but some Red is doing a real great job of putting up a bunch of links and videos that we're talking about. So hats off to Red.
Thank you, Red. We love you. Thank you. Cool. We're going to give John a few minutes. John, are you there?
Did he hang up? Did we lose him, or is he still on the call?
I think he's still there. He might be muted and forgot. John, if your phone does have mute. Or maybe he put his phone down. I don't know. No, it shows him on the call. So.
Yeah, he's still there.
Okay. Is Bob on the line? Is Bob on the line? Bob, are you there?
Bob dropped.
Yeah, Bob
dropped. He's got things going on, so yeah, we do understand.
We really do need to get a system where people can call in. I mean, this Skype thing is really ridiculous.
Hopefully something will pan out. Maybe this coming.
Yeah.
John, is there a subject you might want to put your teeth into? John.
He's
on the call, but he can't hear us, or he's away from his phone or something. So.
Okay.
I guess we just go on.
Okay.
Sorry, John. Sorry, John. We got to go on without you.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
Go ahead, John.
Now he's back.
Okay. Well, John, we'll give you a few minutes. Is there something you want to talk about?
Well, I could talk about some of the topics you spoke about earlier, or I could start with something entirely new.
Well, give us surprises.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you surprises.
We only have an hour left. Come on.
There you go.
Okay,
take your time. Yeah, we're on the air. Take your time.
Okay. Well, I thought we were still on break, but anyhow.
No. We've been back.
Okay. The one thing that impressed me about the whole Kavanaugh situation is that I don't think any of us really have a clue as to what this was all about. And the reason I say this is because in doing research on Kavanaugh and finding out that he served as George W. Bush's staff secretary at the White House starting in around 2003, until a few years later he was appointed as an appellate court judge in the District of Columbia by President George W. Bush at the age of 41, which is quite remarkable, considering he had relatively little law experience behind him compared to most judges. You begin to wonder what this is all about. But when you stop to think that this guy Kavanaugh was George W. Bush's closest confidant during that period of time. In all probability, he was not involved in any of the diabolical things like 9/11, the invasion of Afghanistan, or the invasion of Iraq, or the oil interests of Chevron in Kazakhstan, in the Caspian Aral Basin. It seems as if what was really going on, being such a close confidant, he acquired knowledge of a lot of very top secrets of President Bush, material that you would never want to have released to the public. And in all probability, that's the reason why George W. Bush appointed him as the appellate judge for the District of Columbia, a position which he holds today. And that's why he has the title of Judge Kavanaugh. Now, at the Senate hearings for the Judicial Committee, we heard Dr. Condoleezza Rice have some very nice words to say on behalf of Judge Kavanaugh. Now, I think there were two reasons why she was present. Of course, she wanted to convince people that he was an outstanding judge, a person of moral character, and very competent for the position. So she was basically supporting him in that way. But I think there was a subtle secondary reason for her being present at those hearings. And I think that was to remind Judge Kavanaugh that the secrets that he held would have to be kept by him. And that if for some reason he failed to keep those secrets, a lot of terrible things might happen to him. And so, believe it or not, in spite of what you guys were talking about earlier regarding the Democrats versus Republicans and how the vote will probably come out tomorrow in the U.S. Senate, and Judge Kavanaugh will probably just squeak by as the next justice, I think behind the scenes that was staged by the New World Order Illuminati people who were sending...
Oh, I agree with you on that one, John. I agree with that one, John. Go ahead.
That were sending Judge Kavanaugh a message. We're going to do everything we can to get you in office, but at the same time, we want to remind you that we have basically enough information that we could fabricate on you, as we did during the hearings, which in all probability were never true, but they'll be so convincing that you'll be ruined and destroyed. And that's why they always try to pick someone that they have the goods on, basically, whether it's a military officer of rank of full colonel or higher, or a civilian who holds a judgeship like Judge Kavanaugh. Because when people get in a position where they are surrounded by top secrets, and they are aware of this information, and if this information were to ever get out to anyone else, it could pose a threat for the Bushes and many other people like Dr. Condoleezza Rice, to the point where the nation would probably just go into a complete outrage like we've never seen before in this nation. And they have to keep that under control. And the only way they can keep that under control is to keep certain people who have that information under control. And so that's the picture and background behind this whole situation that we're being fed by the news media.
Well, there was a couple of other things that were in play there, too.
Go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead, Nick.
Number one, Kavanaugh has a really abysmal record when it comes to the Fourth Amendment. I mean, when a guy comes out...
when he came... The Fourth Amendment, what is the Fourth Amendment? Tell me real quick.
That's the one that is...
The right to assemble?
No. Right to assemble is in the First Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is the right for people to be secure in their persons and personal effects, and no warrant shall be issued without probable cause. I do believe that's
okay. So okay, go ahead.
Hold on, let me do a quick check. I don't want to state that one wrong.
Yeah, except in time of war.
Yeah, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, in the type of technology and that we have today, surveillance has fallen into that, as far as seizing your emails, your phone your phone calls, and all that stuff. Of course, the NSA violates that on a daily basis.
Right.
Oh yeah. By the way, which they have a really sparkling new data center up in Utah that we just paid $1.5 billion of our tax dollars to build so that the NSA can spy on us. But Kavanaugh said in one of his papers, and I think it was one of his rulings, he said that the spying on America and the surveillance techniques that they use under the NDAA is consistent with the Fourth Amendment, which it's not.
It's not.
None of it is.
Correct.
So, this whole dog and pony show about some CIA asset who actually was a recruiter for the CIA coming in front of the hearings and talking in that nice little, oh my God, I'm just a teenage girl voice, but you're like 500 years old. That was all very manipulative, and it never allowed anybody, because it was so under such media scrutiny. It was nobody ever asked Kavanaugh questions about his stance on the Fourth Amendment and surveillance and unwarranted surveillance against the American people. Nobody ever got those questions in because everybody was so concentrated on these BS charges by somebody who is intimately connected to the CIA.
That's another thing. If all these guys all know each other, that just come out that Kavanaugh's, the woman who accused when she was 15, that her father and all her friends, they're all CIA guys. This is all a company thing.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. The other part of it that no one was paying attention to, and this is one of the stuff that I brought up earlier, is the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030,
right.
Agenda. It's written in their manuals. Like I'm gonna start calling them playbooks or manuals or something now, because that's exactly what they are. This whole feminist movement that they started. The Me Too movement, the feminist movement, what's going on in Hollywood that got Harvey Weinstein probably facing the rest of his life in prison. They have absolutely weaponized feminism, and they used it to attack Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh is going to be who he is. Oh my God, he drank a beer 36 years ago and threw some ice at somebody in a bar, and that turned into, well, he raped me at a party that I can't remember how I got there. I can't remember where it was. I don't remember who was there. I only had one beer, and it was Kavanaugh that did it. So they've turned that entire feminism movement into a weapon to be used against people. They did it earlier when Clarence Thomas was being confirmed years ago, but now they've and it's again right in the documents. This whole women's movement, empowering women and all of that. They've actually weaponized it now so that no real questions that should have been asked during that hearing can be asked. Right. So I'm looking at this whole Kavanaugh hearing a little bit sideways now, since I was reading Agenda 2030 and all the stuff that was in it. Right. I'm looking at the Kavanaugh hearing sideways, going like, maybe the guy shouldn't be confirmed. Maybe he is a Trojan horse. Maybe they're stirring all this up. Number one, to divide the country. Everything about the globalists is divide and conquer.
Oh, totally. Yes. I agree.
So this whole thing has really split the country even further than we were before. Under the Obama administration. Yeah. And so maybe I'm looking at this now, going like, well, maybe they're doing this to create that divide. They're trying to get this guy in there, and maybe he's going to be the globalist guy. Another one that they're shoving in there, and we're stuck here picking sides like it's going to matter to us, because it doesn't matter to anybody except the globalists getting in their guy into the Supreme Court, because he's going to make rulings that are going to be in their favor. So I'm kind of,
that's right.
Alex Jones and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, they can all pick whatever sides that they want. And of course, most of the time, Hannity and Rush are all going to be like, oh, we have to get this guy in. You're going to have that sub creature, Rachel Maddow and CNN, all those minions over at CNN screaming, oh, we have to get him. We can't have him in there. And I'm kind of looking at this in the middle right now, going like, something is. There are red flags that are going up for me right now, going about Kavanaugh. I mean, I don't hate the guy, but I don't trust him. I really don't. This whole dog and pony show,
the theater that took place,
it's really hard to explain unless you're dealing with people. Yeah, Wendy, you've seen this before when we were dealing with the Republican Party in California. We've seen this kind of theater before.
Yeah,
and you really do start, the flags start going up when you start getting into you get past the surface part of it, and you get past the dog and pony show, and you realize what you're looking at, and you're going like, wait a minute, maybe this guy's a plant. Something is not right here. When you have,
well, Nick, we're definitely going to get a person, if he is confirmed, who is going to be controlled. And he's going to be controlled by the New World Order and the Illuminati.
Yeah, see, that's the part that concerns me more than anything else, is where, okay, the guy is coming in there. We've heard this before time and time again. I'm a strict Constitutionist. I believe in the Constitution. I've heard that 1,000 times from 1,000 different people, and every single one of them turned out to be a lie, except for maybe, enough that I can count them on one hand. Ron Paul was the guy that really opened my eyes to this. And even Rand Paul, as much as I like him, isn't exactly holding the bar up that his father set for him. So, you start to really, everything really starts to smell. It's like, being on, I kind of like it. Well, I kind of liken it like this. It's like being in the police department for a long time. You start to really, you can see the stuff that nobody else can see. You start to smell the bullshit. I don't know how to put it any other way. That's what it comes down to, because you're seeing things from a different perspective than other people are seeing it from. And this entire piece of theater that we watched in D.C., I'm looking at it sideways going like, something's not right here with this guy.
Well, you know what? One thing I'm going to say something that you might, both of you guys might disagree, but you're right. The New World Order has definitely got some tentacles like an octopus out there, and it's going to be interesting where this is really going to go. But one thing I would say right now, you're going to see Kavanaugh become very, very non-public after this. He is going to take a back seat, because once you become a Supreme Court, you get a little security and stuff like that, but and rightfully so. But you're going to see him really, I think, become very, how would you say, because of the stuff that the feminists have done. You're going to see him, I think, become somewhat very quiet.
Take a very low profile.
Very low profile, and that's something that I'm going to tell you about right now, Nick. And it's not to sit there and say, and I understand, the New World Order, these guys is just, physically, mentally, spiritually, they have, it's like an octopus with many tentacles. It's not to sit there, and I think you make extremely valid judgment on what you're saying. To be honest, I think, looking at the chessboard, I think it's very good. and you too, John. But the second thing I would say too is this. Now, this is just me. That I can't prove this. I don't know this. But I would not disagree with what you have said. But this is the other thing that I'm going to throw in there. Something inside Kavanaugh. Not that he's perfect. Not that he's been. I actually don't know where all of his decisions, especially like what you said, Nick, on the fourth about search and seizure and stuff like that. But I'm going to tell you something. And I'm just going to say this. I could be dead wrong on this one, okay? So I do think he's going to take a less of a private. He's going to step away from the public life a lot. He's going to become kind of very take a step back. But the second thing I would say is this: he is so pissed off. Not that the tentacles of the New World Order aren't attached, but I believe he's not going to do what the liberals want. Now, it'll be interesting if those tentacles by the New World Order, how do you say, put the hand on the shoulder, and where this particular gentleman is what, in the end now, Nick, I hate to say this, but, he's going to find out, you're going to find out really what kind of person, for years to come, where his decisions are going to lie. But I don't believe, this is just me, I can't prove this. I don't believe it's going to come from, he's going to be kind of pissed off. It would have to be a decision for him to go to in order for him to go to the left, I don't see him necessarily, he could be a middle of the road guy, but I'm going to tell you something, Nick, he really got hammered by the feminists. So I know one thing: he's definitely not necessarily going to do basic liberal stuff. But on major decisions, this going to be a barn burner, to say the least.
You think this entire episode really is going to affect his judgment when it comes to making decisions in the cases that come before him?
Look, I can tell you one thing: look, like you said, they did not ask various questions on the Bill of Rights.
No, they didn't ask the right questions. Matter of fact, they didn't ask any questions.
Right, and this is crazy. And the famous thing I always hear about Roe versus, I swear to God, you could be like sitting in the middle of the country, and Roe versus Wade is the only thing these people. I'm thinking to myself, the guns or freedom of speech or very basic things. They don't. It's always the same thing that's coming from the left because it's such a diversion.
Right.
So I think it's going to be interesting, and I don't know, John and Nick. I don't know. When you do go to the Supreme Court, it takes a few weeks or a few months, and I don't know what's on the docket. But I can tell you something: it's going to be extremely interesting. But I don't see him being this liberal, and he's so pissed off about what has happened. Even though all these guys, even though I know the CIA that orchestrated, I understand. It's going to be interesting, but I do think he's going to take a step back from the private life. That one, I think he's going to be more secluded than you think. He's going to bow out on that one.
Yeah, he can step back from the public spotlight for a little bit, but I mean, pretty much I think the Supreme Court justices, except for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, maybe they all pretty much step out of the spotlight so they can do their job.
Right, I understand, and they're protected. And another thing too, Roberts, because of Roberts, that's how we got Obamacare, because of it became a tax. So he thought it was wonderful that the American people could become taxed, so you could go ahead and do this to the force American people. This is to force the American people to buy. Can you imagine? I sit there and say, "Listen, Nick, I need you to go out and buy me a refrigerator," but you said it to everybody in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Everybody has to buy. It's a tax, so it's
a tax, so you can go. Yeah, right. It's so convoluted, and and you wonder, and just think about what I'm going to say to you. You're wondering because that decisions that Robert did that passed Obamacare, and that was definitely New World Order. So it will be. It's going to be real interesting to see what comes up in the next couple of years, what docket comes up, or what cases come before the Supreme Court.
See, here's the thing too, though. They because of this delay that they had, the Supreme Court is already in session. They're in session right now, and he hasn't been confirmed. He should have been confirmed a little while ago if they were going to do it.
Sure.
But like I said, there were no relevant questions asked to the guy. It just became trotting out some CIA asset lady who made all these allegations about a guy, who was drinking in college. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Somebody in college was actually out there drinking and partying? Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. I think the world
just go to a frat house or something. I don't know. Sorority. It's unbelievable.
College kids weren't drinking.
But keep in mind, all of this opposition was staged for a purpose.
Yeah, I agree. We agree with that, John.
That he better toe the line, and never divulge anything about the Bushes or Condoleezza Rice. These people have powerful control over this guy, and they wanted to remind him how they could stage this whole situation. Now, keep in mind that there's never really been any substantial evidence that really suggests that he would take a challenge against Roe versus Wade. There's been a lot of talk, but you have to say one thing about the hearings in which he responded to what I believe were the false accusations by Dr. Ford. He handled it in such what I would call a cowardly manner that I would not expect of a true man. That I basically lost all respect for him.
How so?
Because I thought of him as a crybaby, Nick and Wendy. I honestly did. I did not buy into what Lindsey Graham was saying. That. He was just treated so badly that he doesn't blame him for acting in that manner. If he was a person of stamina, I think he could have stood up a lot stronger. But perhaps that's because he, like many of the other privileged, nice white boys, have never served in the military like you have, Nick, and put your life on the line as I have. And as a result, we end up with these kind of spineless men and women in office. I don't know if you picked that up or not.
Well,
I don't know. I think I saw that a little different. I mean, not entirely different. I understand what you're saying, but you got to remember, I was also when I was in the Marine Corps. I mean, I've told this to other people when they, when working on the sets or when I was in college, and it's really funny watching some of these people in college who have no idea about anything that really goes on in the world.
True.
And when everything started going bad, and people started pissing and moaning and hollering and whatever, I would just sit back and just watch it happen. and one of my professors came up to me one time and says, "Aren't you mad about it?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." He's like, "Well, I mean, this person was over. I mean, because I got in a real argument with some people when I told them one time that a bunch of liberals that Bill Clinton had sold the country down the river, and you could have heard the entire room just exploded. And they were all screaming and hollering and yelling, and my professor was like, I mean, didn't that bother you? And I said, hey, I've been yelled at by better than them, believe me. I was at Parris Island for 3 months. Almost 4 months. So you can't tell me that a bunch of these little whiners yelling at me is going to mean anything to me? Come on.
Listen, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And you know what? I'm not to sit there and say that there could have been different candidates than Kavanaugh, but he's probably going to, like you said, get confirmed tomorrow. I don't know what time they start Eastern time. But I can tell you this: It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but you also got to remember this too. With the accusations that the Democrats were making against him, and this CIA asset Ford, when she came in and made all those baseless accusations, basically accusing him of rape. Other ones calling him a blackout drunk. I mean, I don't think the guy getting mad about that is a little unreasonable. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
No, it's very reasonable to get mad and angry. But in the manner in which he did it, Nick, to me it was a disgrace. He should have stood up a lot stronger to his accuser and what was being said. He sounded to me more like a crybaby because I think he's lived a basically very sheltered life.
That's possible, yeah, probably.
And this is a person who's basically going to be put in a position to determine what sort of a future you and I and Wendy are going to have.
Right, and that's why I said. That's why I was saying, like, why did this whole thing? This entire show that went on, they never got to the relevant questions that they should have been asking him about. What his entire stance on the Fourth Amendment being like the big elephant in the room.
Right.
Nobody ever asked him about it.
Right. There just wasn't certain questions that were asked. Absolutely. And I agree with you, Tick. I agree with you on that one. It's definitely going to be interesting, a thing. If you get like you said, tomorrow, a good chance that he will be nominated. Be appointed, make the thing. And
he's going to get confirmed with Collins and Flake.
It's my opinion that if he is confirmed, it's going to be more of a thorn in Trump's side, and it's going to weaken his administration far more than if he were not confirmed.
Well, but you also got to look at it like this. You got this country sitting on so polarized at this point.
Yeah, right.
That they are going to, you got the liberal Democrats on one side and some liberal Republicans, and you got the hardcore Trump supporters on the other side. So, sorry, you can't really get in the middle in anywhere. You're not going to find any middle ground between the two. So if Kavanaugh gets confirmed, all the Trump supporters and some of the Republicans are going to be screaming for joy and jumping around and being happy, and you're going to have the liberals and the Democrats pissing and moaning on the other side. The fact of how it's going to affect Trump's presidency is like not even on their radar for the majority of America.
Okay, let me guys ask you this because we got about 25 minutes left in the program before we think. But let me ask you this because I want to throw this in at you guys. Have you and Nick? I know that you keep up to date. I'm not sure, John, what certain websites you do go on, but the thing with Q that they believe now. Look, the coup d'état on various levels have been trying to take place since the loss of since Trump took the White House, which they were not expecting. Do you think that it is true that these indictments are supposed to come down? That and especially the FISA report. I hear now 2 days ago, supposedly Nick and John, that the FISA reports are going to be released. They went to session and said you're going to release everything now. So this is the thing now, John, and then just listen and Nick, what I'm going to say to you.
Now, are you talking about the FBI? This is not the FBI. Or
just listen, John. If the FISA reports get released, they went to Sessions a couple days ago and told him you have to release everything now. So this is the thing. If Kavanaugh gets confirmed, and we'll have to see how he's going to be, just listen to me. But if the FISA report comes out, the indictments, John, Nick, this is where the coup is. So the bottom line is, this is a tremendous offense and defensive play for Donald Trump on the chessboard right now. You probably go to George Webb, but there's quite a few people that follow Q as well. And this is going to be interesting. If these indictments come down, and they start arresting people, which they should, because these people have committed crimes, guys. I mean, I can tell you something. Crimes. Like you can't believe Comey, Rosenstein, the list goes on and on. So you're talking about if they start arresting people, John, think about this. You need to look at the chessboard here. If these indictments come down and they start arresting people, you're talking about major victories for the American people. And it's not necessarily based on party line. This is not about the Democrats or Republicans. That is based on truth and freedom. Now, I understand half the America doesn't understand truth and freedom, but there are major things on the chessboard. But if they can get some of these indictments to go in hand with the confirmation, I think it's enough of a wave to really do some major positive things for the country, John, instead of a negative. But, hey, maybe they should give me some comment back on that one.
Well, first of all, I don't think that Kavanaugh's going to be a reliable person for Trump.
Okay.
I really don't.
But
go ahead.
Okay. Go
Well,
ahead.
but you also got to look at it like this. Kavanaugh getting on the Supreme Court isn't going to be one way or the other on whether or not the indictments get handed down, because that's going to fall onto the Department of Justice.
That's not going to be him, John.
Right.
And so it's the indictments are really important, John.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
If the indictments don't come down, then there's problems, and there's problems in the next 2 years for every American. Go ahead.
But here's the thing. Okay, let's look at the Department of Justice under Donald Trump so far, and especially with this latest Attorney General that we got, Jeff Seditions. The guy has recused himself from the Department of Justice on on everything except he wants to keep marijuana illegal. So if there are indictments that get handed down, I just don't see Jeff Sessions doing anything. The guy is like he's a dust collector sitting in the corner of your house. He doesn't do anything. I mean, the guy he's like that old unused Cabbage Patch doll that you got stored up in your attic. There's no reason for the guy to be there.
Yeah, I know. But I think if these indictments come down and the FISA report comes out, Nick, I'm crossing my fingers and praying to God that if it does happen, and face it, Nick, if they can at least go after Comey, go after Mueller, go after some of these people, there's going to be a crack somewhere. And Nick, this is where you're going to get the domino effect. And this has to happen. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you got to remember, it's got to come down from the Attorney General. He's the one who's got to file the charges.
No, I do understand that.
And if Sessions' track record so far being what it is, I just don't think he's going to do anything about it. He doesn't do anything. The guy never does anything. Oh, except that he gets mad at people who smoke pot.
And he does collect a paycheck.
Oh yeah, and he collects a paycheck too.
Has Rosenstein been removed yet, or I think
not yet. He hasn't. He's still
not yet. He's still there. But the thing about this is, John, if the FISA report is released to the public, and they want it, and they do not want, how do you call it? What's it called? Nick, what's the word that they use? The black ink that's not on with the indictment, what they call indictment. When all the FISA reports are released, what'd you say?
What is it you're saying about the ink?
Sometimes when you get like a federal copy, they have like all this black on the paper.
The redactments.
The indictments. So if the indictments are not on and the FISA reports get released, hey, listen to me, Nick. There's going to be people looking for lifeboats or life jackets at basic. They're not going to necessarily get them. I think this is really, listen to me, Nick. I think this is really, and I understand Kavanaugh has been such a theater on so many levels. But the real guts and the real bolts and nuts is if Q's going to be right, if these indictments are going to come down, and if Trump, if God and Trump come together, that's how I look at it. If this administration can get some of these indictments to come down the pike, there's something's going to give, and they can try to get rid of what you call the black plague, the swamp, the evil tyranny that has been on this country for at least the last 100 years.
Well, we've been trying to reach Trump on this issue for almost a year now, Wendy, and so far we have not succeeded. We've tried to contact him. We've made some headway in knowing that he's read some of my material, but there's another problem. I think that you pointed out earlier in the program, if I'm not mistaken. Hillary Clinton has access to many of the key controls of our entire government.
Yes, and that's something that, yes, I believe it's the CIA, John, the FBI, and the NSA, and they've collected taxes on all these agencies from the American taxpayer, and every home computer. People really truly do not understand. And there was, Nick, did we send you the link to look this up about the keys? Did me and Bob send you this to look up? I don't know if you did, or do you know what I'm talking about?
What keys?
Okay. Well, I'll make sure you get it. There's a couple of gentlemen that gave this information. I don't know their names in front of me, and then Bob is not on right now.
These are coded keys.
These are coded keys, and what she is that they started a company called, I believe it's called like the Trust Company or Intrust or something like that, Nick.
Okay, yeah, you never sent me that link because I would have remembered.
Okay,
that.
I got to make sure you get to this because there's something that you need to look, and we definitely need to go into. And these couple of guys go into it, and the bottom line is that she has a back door into the NSA, into the CIA, into the FBI, and she can go into their computers and literally, like if I put Wendy Gardens on Wednesday, she can literally pull that from the computer.
She had the encryption keys to get into the back doors of government computer systems even after she was out of office?
Yes.
And it's one of the big, listen to me, Nick. This is one of the major stories that only the alternative media message. I sent this to, we sent this to Deborah Tavares. I thought we sent it to you. Maybe you didn't get it. I'll make sure that Bob sends it again. The fact that this is a huge story that is really only got very, very little, even in the alternative media, recognition, and because of the theater that's going on. So the thing about this is it. If Trump and these indictments can come down the pike, something can give, and that we might, because the thing about this is, Nick, because the story is so bad, and because of the tyranny and the corruption with Hillary, with Obama, with the draining of the swamp and the New World Order, the Kabbalah, if the indictments don't come down, Nick, and 2 years pass, and not that I don't think that Donald Trump is not a likable guy. I think that it's going to be extremely interested what Democrat goes against him. But the thing about this is, Nick, that one of the real story to another story, which if they don't do the indictments and this isn't dealt with, the bottom line is, Nick, when whoever does get in, you're talking holy moly, because
right.
The American people do not understand the thing that Hillary Clinton did with the keys, the back doors to all these major companies, and tax the American people for it.
Right.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I wish Bob was on, but I know Bob's going through some trouble right now.
You also got to also look at the DOJ track record too.
Yeah.
On this, and the FBI track record too. I mean, even when Comey was in, and we all know that Comey was a bought up paid shill.
Absolutely.
When he gets on national television and lists every single crime that Hillary did, and she was never going to get indicted under the Obama administration, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
So he listed every single crime that she committed, and then Comey says, we're not going to recommend prosecution, and of course, the DOJ never did it. Yet we get a turnaround on the administration. We get a brand new attorney general, and even with the admission of the former director of the FBI's testimony on camera in front of the nation, Jeff Sessions didn't turn around and just go like, we already have him saying she committed these crimes, and doesn't bother to go in and prosecute. I don't know that they're going to bother to prosecute her for anything, regardless of what she's done. She's having people killed on a record rate. I mean, I swear to God, the Italian mafia must be proud of her, or holding her up as a role model or something.
Or envy.
Yeah, maybe of envy. Yeah, I swear to God, if John Gotti or Sam Giancana was still alive, they'd probably be like going, "Oh, that's the way you do it."
Yeah, it's but, definitely a demonic evil.
It comes down to I don't know what it is that the Clintons have on people. I don't know what they have in their notebooks or on a file somewhere or ready to get mailed out to anybody at a moment's notice. But nobody will touch them for anything. They can rip $5 billion from Haiti and funnel it back into their Clinton Foundation. Nobody says a word. They can I think they're up to almost 50 people now who are going to testify against them or knew something about them. Nobody says a word. Bill Clinton can rape. Was it like 4, 5, 6, and God knows how many, what the count really is, but for the women that came forward, nobody says a word.
Now, let me just mention one thing. Larry Nichols, who appeared years ago on the George Putnam show, Wendy, you might recall.
Yeah, occasionally he goes on Alex Jones too, but I haven't heard him lately. Go ahead. Well,
I don't. He should be dead by now. About a year and a half ago, Larry Nichols said he should be dead in a year because that's what the doctors predicted. But he was basically the Clintons' hitman back in Arkansas, and then he decided to stop being a bad guy and trying to be a good guy. And so he revealed everything he possibly could about the Clintons' diabolical techniques. And I don't know if you've heard of the Clinton Chronicles. The
Clinton Chronicles, the death and murder of Vincent Foster. The Clinton Chronicle 2s. People need to look this up. It's real. It's totally real.
And about the same time Larry Nichols came out here to California, I think there was a fellow by the name of Patterson who was one of Clinton's bodyguards in Little Rock at the governor's mansion. And he told us about things that of the Clintons. And he said of the two, there's no doubt about it, the most vicious one is Hillary. And that surprised some of us because we were under the impression. And, of course, we had Janet Reno back then, too, and Waco and everything else. And people have been kept in the dark as to what really went on. They were so focused on Monica Lewinsky like they're focused on Dr. Ford right now that they had no idea that the Clintons were selling our atomic and nuclear and...
well, face it, Louis Tree and what happened at Los Alamos is a disgrace. No one ever went to jail for that one either. I mean, people. It's amazing. During the 8 years, the stuff that they did, and no one ever went to jail. It's beyond words.
And go back a little bit further, because you brought up Hillary Clinton selling the uranium to the Russians under the Uranium One scandal.
Absolutely.
But go back some years earlier. I mean, after World War II, everybody in America was trying to figure out how the hell did the Russians, when they were we were in the they were our allies during World War World War II, and then we went through the 45 years or so of the Cold War, and everybody was trying to figure out how the hell did the Russians get our atomic weapons technology, because FDR gave it to them.
Yes, it was shipped right over to them by way of Alaska. Yeah,
yeah, I know. That was read the Major Jordan diaries. I did, you know, and it was under the Lend-Lease program. You know, and Harry Hopkins, who basically was a traitor to this country as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, he was.
You know, that entire episode, you know, happened, and, you know, that's how the Russians got the technology. That's how they were able to extend the Cold War for that long a period of time until the Russian economy collapsed. And then you got, now in modern times, you got Hillary Clinton doing the same damn thing.
Well, yeah, it's, listen, guys, and the thing with the keys, we're going to find you sending links, beyond words, guys. I just pray that the Pfizer report comes out, is released, and what Q is saying, and with the indictments, because if it doesn't, you know, we got, you know, Trump has got 2 more years, hopefully, you know, and
hopefully he has longer than that.
Yeah. Oh, hopefully, absolutely. But you know, just gotta hunker down and put some prayers in, because there's so much evil out there, it's beyond words, and the only way you can fight evil is, you know, God Almighty and our people, and coming together for and face it, coming together not because of party, because of for truth and freedom. Because the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, that's our common bond. And this is something that the right and the left and part of the right, the guys that are in New World Order, that have totally manipulated this in the United States.
Well, we were manipulated when political parties came along. I think that was one of the things that
Washington warned about.
Yeah, Washington warned us about. Don't get locked into political parties.
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's
stick to the
divide and conquer, right? That's divide and conquer right there. And then look at where we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, basically, like Deborah Tavares has said many times, and she's correct. During the War Powers Act of 1933 or 32. We basically lost our constitutional rights, but we're still going under the assumption that they exist. But the people in Washington, as we found out during the George W. Bush administration, do not recognize the Constitution. As far as he was concerned, it was worthless. So again, questions like that should be addressed to Kavanaugh. Who,
of course, guys, and none of this was even addressed. I agree with you, John.
Yeah.
It was definitely really, theater for Kavanaugh. Definitely lots of theater.
Well, yeah, and it becomes a point when you start getting, you know, I'm not like 18 or 20 years old or in my 20s anymore when, you know, I was off doing my thing then, and, you know, I was always paying attention to politics, but I was never deeply involved in it because I was doing so much other stuff at the time. But when you get older, and you start to see this repetitive, whatever these motions that the government pretends to go through over and over and over again, you got to realize that there's something else going on.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
And it really does, you know. And I really, you know, there's an old saying that youth is wasted on the young. You know, and it was like I mean, the young Liberty, American for Liberty or something like that. Those guys are pretty on the ball.
But still, a lot of significant contributions have been contributed by the youth of our nation.
Yeah, but you got to
sacrifices.
The thing about it is like
here's one question that I have.
Go ahead.
And that is, will the Faisal report be released by any of the major television networks or major newspapers through the United States if it ever is released?
Only if it's wanted to.
It depends how they're face it. If the Pfizer report is released, they're going to do a major spin. I mean, the New World Order is going to do a major spin on it.
Well,
but the thing about this is, if the free Pfizer report gets released without all the indictments, just listen to me, and 1 or 2 people immediately start getting arrested, John. Hopefully, how do you call it? When rushing water starts to move, it's like you can't get out of the way. tsunami. So we've got to hope to God that happens, and that's what's got to happen for in order to get somewhere, to clear the house, because the corruption physically, mentally, and spiritually, John, is beyond words.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing about Washington, D.C. I don't think there is any more spirituality left in it.
Well, Washington, D.C. is the district of criminals. I mean, this is where the problem lies, guys. I mean, it's district of criminals. I mean, it's the evil is the 12 square miles, which is the corporation of what. That's why I call it the corporation of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a corporation.
If you actually go into the this website that has these companies' registrations, and it's a Delaware registration site, and you go on it, the United States of America Incorporated is in there.
Right.
There's a couple of them, so I don't know what level they're operating on. But when the United States went into bankruptcy in 1933, we stopped being a constitutional nation. And, that's one of the things I really wish people would wake up to and understand why they have a Social Security number in order to work.
Right.
Why, when you go in front of a judge, you have a gold fringe flag hanging in the back of the courtroom.
That's right.
And when you make your plea, you don't have to plead with the court, but they're going to hold you in contempt. You don't realize that when you stand in front of that judge and you acknowledge that court, that you no longer are under constitutional law.
Right. You have to really know, listen to me, you have to really know what to say and how when you go into the courtroom, you really need to know procedure on what to say to him, because if you don't, you will get trapped. You will get trapped. Absolutely.
By your own.
And it is about knowing procedure when you go into the courtroom.
Well,
it's procedure.
It's about knowing the language.
Absolutely.
More than procedure.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely. Absolutely.
If anybody really wants to understand legal language, find Black's Law Dictionary. Volume 4 or earlier, because those are actually the really good ones.
And check out The Creature from Jekyll's Island by G. Edward Griffin, because it's documented on every page.
Great.
You can go to realityzone.com. That's his website to buy the book. It's on the Fed, but it's documented on every page, and great history in it. And you do need to have some basic facts on stuff, so that's a great book to read.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I brought that book into court when I was getting selected for jury duty.
Did they actually select you?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't get selected. I finally got. I made it to the second round, but they finally dismissed me because I think I was a little bit too
all right.
confidential for them. So, but it was fun having that book in there.
Right. There you go. Hey, we'll be back next week. We do have a wonderful guest, the Great America Quakeout guy. Lance is coming in, and we're going to have some fun with him. So we'll see you next week and have some talk and fun. Thank you for joining us at the Granada Forum radio program with my co-host, Nick Pearson, Richard King, my producer, Red in the chat room, and John, thank you so much, and God bless. We'll see you next week, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.